Then I'd like to welcome everyone in the room as well as those who are connecting externally. I am having the pleasure together with Christine Zhou Xiaoping to take you through this breakout session on Region China. Christine is the head of our Region China. Region China for us is mainland China, Taiwan, and Hong Kong and Macau. And she will do most of the work, and I will join a little bit later on after a couple of slides on the Q&A session. The forward-looking statement, you know, I was speaking a little bit earlier on the podium to how the acronym of IO can sometimes be interchanged between international operations and immense opportunity. If you really think about immense opportunity, probably nowhere in the world do you see that bigger for us than China, certainly now, as well as, of course, into a foreseeable future. And the reason is, unfortunately, that the unmet need that's large everywhere in the world, it's really, really large in China. No secret, it's a very large country, very populous country. So when you look at these numbers, then it somehow makes sense. We don't have data from 2023 or 4 yet, but if you take a look at the latest data available, then it would not be surprising to imagine that by today, probably there are 150 million people living with diabetes in China. And, 150 million people living with diabetes in China, and close to maybe 200 million living with obesity in China. And the numbers are continuing and not stopping. So that, of course, is one part of the problem. The other part is that when you then take diabetes and look at how many of those people are treated and actually have a decent life, it's a fraction of those numbers. They're large numbers. 23 million is actually already a big number, but it's a fraction of 141. And I don't have the version of this for obesity, because actually obesity is even a worse picture. Although the light blue bars are larger, when it gets to reaching treatments, then with obesity is nothing almost. We are not there with Saxenda, and so is no one else with a real efficacious medicine. So there is maybe about 1 million patients that are using herbal medications and or other means to treat their obesity. It's a problem. It's a really big problem. But at the same time, I would say it's also an opportunity and a responsibility for Novo Nordisk. China is the single largest unit I have in international operations. It's only second to United States for Novo Nordisk. The sales, of course, are again very large. And maybe what is interesting about this slide is that we went to China very early. Christine will touch upon that. And maybe because we went there first and we saw the patients and not the financials at the time, we're being credited right now for it. We have an incredibly unusual large market share. And many of our colleagues, many of our new colleagues, and many of our peers and other people don't understand how could it be that a small Danish company can basically have more than half of the insulin market in China when there's so many other players. Why wouldn't Apple, Facebook, Google, Amazon be able to make it in that market, but Novo did in their own area? In GLP-1, of course, the numbers even larger. But that also means that all of our competitors combined are not able to cover what we do, let's say, with insulin. And that gives us a lot of course, responsibility. The other, I think, interesting part of the slide is the right-hand side, where you see that the dynamic in China is somewhat changing. Just a while ago, maybe 2 capital market days ago, China was an insulin market, predominantly. That's the dark blue part of the bar in 2019. And today, you see a fast emergence of GLP-1 on the back of a phenomenal success we've had with Ozempic. And again, we'll come back to how we did that. The other thing you see that we had a decline in 2022, which is very unusual because usually we grow double digit in China. Minus 6% in 22 was caused by a repricing of insulin, what the Chinese called volume-based procurement, VBP. That, of course, cost us some 4 or 5 billion DKK. But the interesting part was that we had a V-shaped recovery because by good works of Christine and the team, as well as, of course, good standing with the government, we were able to change the portfolio very quickly, giving big discounts, very big discounts, to our insulin franchise, but also launching and focusing more on the innovative products, which a little bit also speaks to the sustainability of our business in China as we go forward. The price pressure will not go away, not in China, not in any parts of the world on healthcare, because healthcare providers are actually under pressure, and it's our job to help and support that as a partner. But as that happens, the question is, can you weather it? Can you basically make sure that with the portfolio that you have, with the launches, with the new products, you're able to actually continue the growth rates? And in China, we have shown that that is possible, and that gives me a lot of confidence also as we go forward into the future VBPs and future dialogues on price negotiations with the governments, not least also because I mentioned there is so much untapped volume to tap into as we go forward. So that's the overall perspective on China, but exactly how are we operating, how the governance is, and how are we utilizing the business, Christine will explain.
Thank you, Mike. Greetings, everyone. I'll give you a brief introduction about Novo Nordisk in China. Novo Nordisk has a long-standing presence in China. We entered the Chinese market in 1994 by setting up commercial operations, began investing in manufacturing in 1995, and established a research center in 1997. So over the past 30 years, we have been continuously investing, expanding footprint, and also upgrading the full value chain presence. Now, site Tianjin is one of the global strategic sites. Our research center is an integrated part of the global R&D organization. We have a very large commercial operations on the ground with Shanghai as the regional headquarters for region China, as Mike mentioned earlier. But of course, it covers mainland and Taiwan, Hong Kong, and Macau. Over the past 30 years, we also brought in many innovative medicines to Chinese patients. We have fostered very strong collaborations with external stakeholders to drive change in disease management, to expand access for the patients, and also to improve innovation. So Novo Nordisk in China is a really trusted leader in diabetes and also a trusted partner in healthcare. Now, with this very strong full value chain presence, it provides a great platform for us to drive sustainable development as we move forward in years to come. Now, I would like to share with you some portfolio details for diabetes and obesity, as Mike mentioned, how we are working on the ground. So let's look at insulin first. Insulin has been and will continue to be an important segment in diabetes market. Now, with the implementation of insulin VBP started in May 2022, the insulin market has had a structure change. As you can see from the left side, the total insulin market volumes continued to increase. However, the total insulin market value declined. It is because of the result of price cut across all the VBP insulin products. But of course, our sales has been impacted negatively by the VBP. But Novo Nordisk in China is able to maintain our value insulin market share. That is supported by the growth of innovative insulins, namely Ryzodec and Xortify. But of course, we'll continue to transform our portfolio to be more innovation-driven. Therefore, we do plan to bring icodec and also icosema to the Chinese patients. We look forward to receive the approval of icosema sometime this year. To receive the approval of icodec sometime this year. Thank you very much. Then, of course, with the sales impact negatively on the insulin sales, and the GLP-1 franchise plays a very important role to drive the sales growth and also the sales performance. As you can see from the left side the charts, the GLP-1 portfolio sales in region China have reached 6 billion DKK by the end of last year. And with the 79% growth last year at a constant exchange rate. And clearly, Novo Nordisk is the market leader in GLP-1 segment. Then, of course, the accelerated growth of GLP-1 franchise in region China is really driven by Ozempic, as Mike mentioned earlier. With the Ozempic launch in August 2021 in mainland, inclusion in national reimbursement drug list started from 2022. Our Ozempic uptake and has been really phenomenal, and we are very happy with that. And of course, now we achieved 54% value market share with Ozempic in the GLP-1 market and in mainland. But then let's look at the total diabetes market as you look at the right side. And GLP-1 segment in China is still in the early stage. Currently, only around 3% of the prescription in China and is contributed by GLP-1 in the Chinese diabetes market. So with that, we do anticipate continued growth potential in this segment. The Ozempic will continue to be the value driver in the next couple of years. Again, we will continue to accelerate innovation to Chinese patients. And we are very happy that January this year, we received NDA approval of Rybelsus. So we are planning and look forward to bring Rybelsus to the Chinese patients, and it will be a value driver in next couple of years once we launch that. Obesity. As Mike highlighted earlier, there's a huge unmet medical needs with obesity in China. The number of patients is really significant. If you look at that, around the data we have is 184 adults in China have obesity. However, only a third of them sought for help. Less than 1% of them are receiving anti-obesity medicine treatment. So there's a huge unmet medical need. So we are very excited for China to finally have a chance to bring Wegovy to the Chinese market and to address this significant unmet medical need. We anticipate to receive Wegovy approval sometime this year. We are, of course, actively plan Wegovy commercial launch in China. Similar to some other markets, we launched Wegovy, and in the beginning, it will be also volume capped launch, and we will target self-paid market and in the initial stage. And of course, patient access is really key. But in the initial stage, we will have a very focused access strategy. And in targeted hospitals, we'll work on the hospital listing. But in the meantime, we will also explore commercial health insurance program for selected patients, because it's really important for us to explore a multi-layer payment system and to help patients have access. But we are very excited to have Wegovy once again, because we do believe that it will bring tremendous value to patients and also become an important growth driver for Novo Nordisk in China. So, in conclusion, Novo Nordisk is well positioned to capitalize the opportunity in China. And we have very clear strategy to continue growth and also expand market leadership in region China. But of course, we have to focus on the critical success factors and in the meantime, mitigate potential risks. We will continue to drive portfolio transformation towards more innovation-oriented and more diversified business. So if we look at our business over the next couple of years, diabetes will remain our core business for Novo Nordisk region China, with the two growth drivers, GLP-1 franchise and innovative insulin. Once we launch Wegovy, and obesity and Wegovy will really become an important growth driver in the next couple of years for our business. But of course, we also look forward to enter the cardiovascular area. Once we enter cardiovascular area, the CV portfolio will be a long-term growth driver for Novo Nordisk in region China. So we're very well positioned. We also intend to regrow Rare D in the next couple of years. In order to enable successful portfolio transformation, we will continue to drive policy advocacy and to work with our partners to foster a conducive, sustainable healthcare environment and also shape the disease management. As we go into the new therapeutic areas, we will continue to transform our go-to-market model because that's really important. We have such a fantastic full value chain presence on the ground, so we will continue to leverage the synergy across the full value chain. Then, of course, organization and the people are the foundation for success. We will continue to attract, develop, and retain the great talents to work together and to really drive change and help many, many patients in greater needs for our innovative medicines. We will continue to develop Novo Nordisk in China as a sustainable employer. With that, I thank you for your attention. Hand over to Mike.
Very much. I got convinced. I think, in short, China is and remains a strategic business for us in Novo Nordisk. And we have a long standing in China that gives us a huge, huge competitive advantage. I cannot undermine how much our history, our brand recognition in China means to the success, besides, of course, having great people and plenty of them, actually. If you think about it from a therapy point of view and or products point of view, I think China still does not have many of the products we have available in, let's say, Europe or US. Those launches are going to be the engines that we're starting as we go forward. Yes, there will be price pressure going forward, but I'm very optimistic because we're turning on many more engines. And two of those big engines, of course, is the GLP-1 on the continuations of Ozempic that was just launched a couple years ago, and obesity. Two of our largest market in IO does not have obesity presence right now. China being the big one, and also Japan. And of course, that is really, really important as we go forward to make sure what has happened to our obesity franchise in US, first and foremost, in the 8 markets in IO, will also happen on the back of huge patient numbers in China. Very good. We'll move to Q&A. Yes, Richard, and then Martin.
Thanks. Richard Vosser from JP Morgan. We saw VBP's effects on insulin. When do you think that will come around for the GLP-1s? I think the patent for Ozempic is a little earlier in China than in other markets, maybe 26. So how quickly can you get CagriSema there? What's the strategy there, and how do you think that will be affected?
Good. I'll give part of the answer, and then please add in. So the accurate answer is we don't know, but I'll give you some building blocks, and you can model what you wish. For VBP to start on GLP-1 sector, then the volumes have to be certain level and large. They're growing, so that gives me some indications that they will not leave this alone, and eventually there will be price negotiations on GLP-1. But there's also that 3 players have to, as a bare minimum, be there, and they have to be able to cover the volumes, because then otherwise no one will participate. They wanted to do the VBP insulin number of years before actually then it really happened, and that was waiting for local players to catch up. You're correct. LOE of semaglutide runs out in 2026. Right now, the indication is that there will be around that time maybe 1 player, and soon after 27 or so, 5, 6 more players coming in. The question is, what volume actually at that time will be at play in terms of our success with Ozempic, obviously being a big element of that. And you saw the growth rate. So again, I cannot project the future. You could do that. And then when they come, at what speed will they have been able to capture those volumes for the price negotiation to be very, very severe? That's one element. Then the other element that I would say as a perhaps piece of confidence is what happened with the insulin was unique. In China, the insulin prices was the highest in the world except US. There was a bit of a common sense and a logic for the Chinese government to come and ask, we have very big volumes, why are we paying double as much as Europe? The price of GLP-1 in China right now is very similar to Europe. So that, of course, again gives me hope and confidence that it will happen, but probably it will not be a copy and paste of the insulin. Do you want to add something to that?
Yeah, thank you, Mike. In total, there are 9 batches of VBPs that have been implemented in China over the past couple of years. So therefore, VBP for mature brands as the means of procurement has become a new norm. So I think it's a very important question, and we also recognize that. And that has been included in part of our planning assumption already. Yeah. So the other thing I want to add on is when we look at Ozempic still is in the launch stage and growing phase. And we do have quite a couple of years to go to continue to accelerate Ozempic growth and also to continue to educate the market about the benefits of GLP-1. That's really important. Please remember, right now there's only 3% of the prescription in diabetes is contributed by GLP-1. So there's plenty room to grow, but importantly, the responsibility for us and other GLP-1 players, we need to make sure and educate the right, make sure to empower HCPs and to use GLP-1 at the right time for right patients.
Good. Martin was first, and then come to you.
Martin Packer, SCB. 11% last year is of course fine, but you are running considerably below group levels. What should we expect going forward? I don't expect to get hard numbers, but shouldn't you be able to grow in line with your internal competitors of the Novo Nordisk organization? And then secondly, it's you can be very excited about if you go and you were in China until it says volume capped, then you get a little bit less excited. So what does it actually mean? Do you know? I don't expect volumes, but will any chance that Wegovy can be a key growth driver for China in the short term, or is the cap too cap?
So I'll answer the two questions in one go. You would have to correct everyone else, all the affiliates and the group growth rates by Wegovy in order then to make a right comparison for my colleague Christine to judge if she's doing good or bad. There are two major growth drivers that the rest of the company currently has, and Christine has not. Wegovy being the big one, in IO specifically, Rybelsus being the second one. Those two products did not exist last year, and despite that, on the back of a young Ozempic, 1.5-year-old launch Ozempic, China did 11%. So then you can make the judgment if that was good or bad. As those products will come, and I think she alluded to them, that Wegovy is going to get registered soon, and hopefully we plan to launch it. Rybelsus is no secret also will follow. Then that would obviously be new engines. But we also touched upon, by the way, it's an insulin market, and icodec and icosema are also in the early phases of the plan. And some of you guys who've been here long enough know that usually when we launched, let's say, a product like icodec in Europe and or US, it took 4 or 5 years before China got on board. China is getting their approval in the same year as the rest of the world is. So that's also, I think, needs to be a little bit considered if the model is still on the old regime. And then on the cap and no cap, we mentioned it. It has to be capped initially, but of course, as we've done with other markets, even these cap launches are amongst the best launches, if not the best launches we have had value-wise with non-capped previous product versions until the supply catches up. And of course, knowing that there's a lot of unmet need here, we will not forget China. We go here then, please.
Hi, I'm Emily Field from Barclays. Just on the Wegovy launch, you mentioned that's obviously going to be volume capped, but given this is going to be the largest market in terms of number of patients that will be launching Wegovy into after the U.S., how are you thinking about scaling that volume, and what are going to be the markers that will determine dedicating more volume to the region?
So again, I probably get this because I give you the volume, so I have to take responsibility over that. So the scaling that Henrik spoke to earlier on today takes into consideration the global need and where we need to be by the end of the decade, or for that matter, 10 years from now. And again, it's very easy to remember the numbers in China because they're very large. So that goes into the calculations of everything that you have seen in terms of our capex expenditure as we go forward. The question is probably more valid into the shorter term planning, and I think the answer to that is for one, the regulatory approval in China is coming later, and here in this case, it actually maybe it's not a bad thing. Usually we get very sad when China comes late on board, but I think if China had the regulatory approval 2 years ago, it probably would have been very difficult to launch ASAP, and we had to wait on it. The fact that they're actually getting the regulatory approval this year and had given us some time to catch up gives me a bit of a hope that if we do the same thing we've done in a number of other markets, UK for example, then we'll be able to follow the same principle and eventually catch up by the time that Henrik is also ready.
Mike, can I add
Sure.
one point? Is that, and to answer both your question, as Mike mentioned, innovation is key. We are accelerating innovation to China, and also along with the healthcare reform, actually the new product development review and approval speed has been greatly accelerated. As Mike mentioned it before, we had a big gap. Now, actually, the approval gap is getting smaller and smaller, which is a great thing for the market and also for patients. So we are working on that. The last thing is about obesity. I know you have a lot of questions about the volume and the number. What I can tell you is that even though we have not launched, we actually have been working with authorities, thought leaders, to understand the market and to build the market, because that's really important. The number doesn't come overnight, even though when you have the approval. So it's really important as a responsible company and understand the market and working with external stakeholders and to build the market. So once we have the approval, once we have the volume, we will have a very responsible launch. And over the time, when all the gates are open, and I hope that the patients and physicians are ready.
Sounds good. Last question.
Thank you. Perhaps you can just add a few more comments on where you see your competitive advances in China, perhaps also compared to some of the other regions in IO, and also if you believe that will be the case with obesity medicine soon, where once we are reaching a stage where scalability and supply is not an issue. I'm just curious because you have a pull market compared to more push market in other ones. So will you sustain that once we finally have a more scalable supply?
I think the short answer is we certainly plan for doing that, but we take our competitors everywhere serious and try to also make sure that we don't get complacent. If you think about the current main business, diabetes in China, we are currently around 30% market share in diabetes. Now, when I say diabetes, it means not just I showed you the insulin and the GLP-1 numbers being much larger. The total diabetes, all the tablets, all the insulins, including, by the way, what Lilly does. So we have about a third of the market. Lilly's market share is at 5%. Due to that, then your presence, your name, the size, everything, of course, is adjusted. And China is a difficult market to come late to the party on any industry, not least ours. So that, of course, gives us a good platform to make sure that obesity follows on that regardless, because still it's a prescription drug, still needs to go through physicians. And Novo Nordisk actually has a very good brand recognition, and not least, of course, semaglutide molecule is in the market with a very, very good safety profile and good reputation.
Yeah, I fully agree. And I think it's really important that we need to, the long-standing presence is really important because you build a mutual understanding. And also we have a very competitive frontline field force on the ground, and we have been working with the external stakeholders and to foster partnership and to drive change together. I think that these things are invaluable competitive strengths. And of course, as always, Novo Nordisk is a very ethical company, and that also gives us a very strong competitive strength. And it's the trust we build, and also confidence that we are developing as we move forward.
Very good. I hope that we were able to give you some confidence that China is here to stay, and we will do our utmost to, of course, continue the good success we have had with our Chinese market. Thank you so much.